2024 Driving Business.
A very good morning to our Smart 24 viewers. You are welcome, and yes, happy New Year. Happy New Year 2024. We are very glad, we thank God we made it to the new year. So this morning it's me again, Enid Ankunda, together with Andrew
Barigi.
Andrew, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you too.
Yes.
And you know, I'm quite really excited. I understand the previous year has not been an easy one, most especially when it comes to the financial perspectives. I mean, a lot of things have happened.
A lot has really happened.
Really affected us as a nation, most especially when it comes to looking into the household, individual incomes. You know, so many inflation. We are battling with inflation. Of course, despite the fact that the recent reports from the Uganda, from the rumors, reveal that there is a reduction, though it's still consistent. But the prices of goods are just increasing, but at a slow pace. But it's still inflation. So I'll sum up the year knowing it from that perspective. I mean, we've seen these wars having impact onto our day-to-day expenditures, but we're hopeful for a better 2024 to make the right decision, most especially when it comes to entrepreneurial abilities. We need to pull our A game. That's
and also correct the things we weren't able to, put right in 2023. Exactly. Yes, so we look forward to more reforms and more solutions, and a very good 2024. We're hopeful. We're hopeful for the best. So today we're looking at some of the global, challenges and
global
events and have happened
in the previous year.
In the previous
and
year.
They're likely to
impact us in this new year,
our economy in this year 2024.
Yes,
and there has been quite lots of them. Of course, as we're going to highlight, we've seen climate change catastrophes.
Yes.
We've seen
AI coming up,
artificial intelligence, perfect, new developments in all that, and also the aspect of inflation, inflation and increasing of interest rates. That is globally from the central banks, from abroad, and you get to realize that it all comes back to us. And in it maybe, I would love to talk about the inflation perspective, first of all. Because remember, the central banks in the various countries, we've seen the Bank of England increase interest rates to kind of increase the value of the pound sterling. Same applies to the Federal Reserve Bank doing the same. And with that perspective, you've come to realize that over the years, over the past year, once the dollar has been increasing, for an economy like Uganda, which largely relies on imports, it's definitely trying, to me, I feel like it's a way of increasing the prices of the imports, because then the dollars are going to be quite expensive.
Yes.
And on top of that, the fact that there is increased demand for a dollar for Ugandan traders to import, that means it's going to become huge on demand. And huge, that means the price is going to increase. So do you realize that now there is a double cost? First of all, the Federal Reserve Bank has increased the interest rate. So the dollar is high. On top of being high, it is scarce. So on top of being scarce, this other person who is holding it in the Forex Bureau, he's going to definitely increase the price. Because he knows you need it.
Yes.
So I think those are some of the huge challenges we've been experiencing, leading to increased importation, the balance of trade payments. We've been having issues in the balance of trade payments. I mean, we find ourselves in absolute deficits.
Exactly.
All the time. So, and even the raw materials we import are not of the best class. So you get to realize that the global inflation has actually been a big issue in terms of determining the flow of money into our country.
Yeah, true.
I don't know what you really see of that.
Looking at talking about inflation,
yeah,
like we've seen the increase in prices and all that. But you know, even the disasters or the catastrophes that are happening in other states are also greatly affecting us. Because you've seen, for example, the floods in Italy, the floods in Brazil. You know,
the Brazilian floods.
Exactly. They also affect us in the long run because we do import from these guys.
Exactly.
So once they're affected, in the long run, we're also affected because first of all, the goods are going to now be scarce.
Exactly. Because actually, talking about that report, I see something about 2023. Definitely witnessed the multitude of extreme weather events and climate catastrophes that is across the globe, highlighting the urgency of addressing climate change. And you see that these events have significantly impacted emerging economies, most especially Uganda.
Yeah, the developing economies.
Exactly. Now, if we could take a look at the heat waves. The heat waves now, these increased over by 20% in 2023, contributing to rising food inflation in Uganda. Now, these are happening in wheat producing countries. And once they happen, they affect the production of wheat.
Since we get wheat from them.
Exactly, from those countries. So you realize it really gets back to us too, so big time. And we see that they increased over by 20% in 2023 and contributing to rising food inflation in Uganda. Yeah, food inflation, which reached up to 10.4% in July 2023. That is the food inflation. And this definitely translates into an estimated 150 million US dollars increase in annual food import costs. Import costs of 150 million US dollars. That's a lot of money.
Exactly.
These are very much. That's what I was saying. That even because I wouldn't mind importing something because now see I'm relating the dollar rise. The value of the dollar increasing because the Federal Reserve Bank has increased the dollar vis-a-vis even the commodity you're going to import, which is also scarce. So now this is the cost coming back to you three times. The impact. You see, the Federal Reserve Bank increased the cost. For you, the cost made the dollar high, and by nature, the Ugandans need to trade. And when they trade, they need the dollars. So the dollars are increasing in price
and
because
still they have
demand.
to purchase.
They still have to purchase a scarce commodity, which is wheat. Definitely, it's going to be very expensive.
Yeah, at the end of the day, it will be expensive for us to buy.
3 times.
Yes.
So we the final buyers, it definitely comes back to us. And some use this wheat as raw materials. We use it we've seen it in flour, in production of flour. So that means the prices are going to be increasing. Talk about bread. All these perspectives. And actually, when you still look at this, the heat waves also affected tourism because Uganda's tourism industry contributes about 10%, which contributes about 10% of the gross domestic product. So a 5% decline in tourist arrivals from the heat wave affected regions, leading to an estimated 50 million loss.
Wow, so that's a lot of money.
Exactly, because the affected regions. People are in at that moment. People are in a space of recovery. So nobody's going to think of
I have to travel.
Exactly. I go to another country. So definitely they're in that psychological torture of recovery, and in that process they are halting travel to come to Uganda. And $50 million. This is the amount of money lost.
And talking about the tourism industry, if you remember so well, we've been having terrorist attacks. Last year, people were being killed and all that, the ADF and so on and so on. So it also greatly affected our tourism industry yes, people were scared. People were like, I can't travel to Uganda because they say it's not safe. But then we were okay just because the instability was in some parts of the country.
Exactly.
But then the picture that people have out there is that no, the country is not safe at all.
Exactly.
And also, we don't need to travel there. So that also greatly affected us last year.
So it still comes back to both domestic tourism.
Exactly.
Because the locals are scared to go into those areas, and same applies to the internationals. And those who would come, the heat waves are affecting them. Not to come. So climate change has played a big role in terms of the revenues. The global climate catastrophes have halted the revenues that was supposed to be received. Because now if you get 150 million,
I know.
Added to 50 million in lost revenue, that is quite a huge one. Now we also see floods here on top of the global catastrophes, the floods that happened. We see which led to supply chain disruptions. The World Bank estimates that floods in South Asia and East Africa caused $10 billion in global trade disruptions. And now definitely $10 billion. So what is Uganda's share on the $10 billion? Now, this is the aspect. This impacted Ugandan businesses that rely on imports and exports. Businesses that rely on imports and exports. Now, I would see that it also led to insurance costs as a insurance premiums for food areas in Uganda. I expected actually to rise by 15 to 20% by this year, 2024. It's according to a report. Of course, adding an additional $5 million US dollars on the government's insurance budget. That's still a huge amount of money, you know. And by the way, talking about all this, we've seen aspects of what we call aid diversion. That some of these areas that are inflicted with catastrophes, in case there could be aid that is coming in through,
it's diverted.
It is diverted for that cause, you know, and that aid, we know, it's mainly for the emerging economies to sort out, you know, their different activities within there, but it's diverted. And this is clearly witnessed here as we see droughts, regional instability. The World Food Programme estimates that the East African drought crisis could actually lead to $30 billion in economic losses, that is across the region, potentially impacting Uganda through refugee inflows and trade disruption. Refugee inflows. Yeah. I mean, it's quite a huge. This is according to the World Food Programme. And of course, we mentioned something of aid diversion, which the report clearly also puts up there, as the United Nations estimates that the drought crisis has diverted $200 million in humanitarian aid from other development programs in Africa, potentially affecting aid programs in Uganda at the same time, of course focused on health, education, and infrastructure at the same time. So catastrophes are quite being a big deal here. And of course we had also extreme weather events, that is come 2023. And we see here that the global there was also the global financial market volatility, as the International Monetary Fund predicted that extreme weather events could trigger a $5 billion, 5 trillion, actually, it's $5 trillion in global economic losses. This is a projection of 2050.
2050.
Yeah. Extreme weather events having an impact on the global financial markets in some sort of a way. And of course, rising insurance costs, because similar to floods, the increasing frequency and intensity of extreme weather events are driving up insurance costs for Ugandan businesses by an estimated 10% a year.
I think Ugandans should now focus more on, if at all this has been happening, what are some of the solutions to these problems?
Now that is the key aspect.
Exactly.
And of course, smart means business, because as SMB we are giving our foresight for 2024, of course basing on what happened in 2023. And of course you mentioned about solutions to that we have. They could actually invest in climate resilient agriculture.
Exactly.
Because this is now like you can allocate $100 million annually. Like for the next 5 years, that $100 million can be distributed in the next 5 years to develop drought-resistant crop varieties, thinking about irrigation systems, climate-informed agriculture practices. Because take a look at countries like Dubai, they are practicing agriculture. They're not surviving on rain-fed agriculture, but of course the modernization, all these perspectives. But all these need money. Now
at the end of the day, we need resources.
We need the resources, but which I think the resources are available, because I would believe agriculture would be the easier way for Uganda to reach its peak.
Yeah, we have the land and everything.
Yeah, we already, because by default, if you have the land, these other perspectives are not hard. I mean, if we have even distribution, because I hear, of course, I understand there are quite a number of initiatives for agriculture, but the aspect is accessibility. Who can access this help? You know?
Yeah.
Who can access this help? It's more of who do I know?
Oh. The connections that you do have.
Exactly. Who do I know? I mean, all that is largely determinant. And now, once this is probably done, allocating $100 million annually for the next 5 years, it could increase agricultural productivity by 20% and reduce food insecurity. Actually, food insecurity is one of the key issues here. I remember the president, when the president emphasized the 4-acre model, using 4 acres, just 4 acres, for maximum productivity, and of course with the desire of increasing agricultural production and also food security. You know, because food security and economic growth and development go hand in hand. Because if you take a look at countries like Sudan, which largely rely on food aid, it's quite expensive for them to really handle, because how are you going to contribute a hungry population? It's not really that sustainable.
Easy. Yeah. So, and even, by the way, injecting more incomes in the agro-based industries.
Agro-based industries.
Yes, and they should also set up more agro-based industries, because when when we add value to our products, it also helps, like, it encourages more people to engage in a practice or in a given activity. So value addition comes in hand with also injecting more incomes in the agro-based industries, and then it could also help to go about the food security issue. And then we also talked about the wheat importation and all that.
Importation of wheat, yes.
We could resort to import substitution,
substitution strategies.
Exactly. We make sure that whatever we don't import, let's start up companies of these things, industries.
The funny thing is that even those raw materials that we import, we do have the materials that can make those materials. You know, I can see iron bars all over here.
Yeah.
So when you take and most of these are imported. So if you look at iron bars in Uganda around, it gives you an estimation of how much money is being lost. But we have iron ore.
Talking about importation and all, there is an industry. I don't know if it's an industry or company, but it could be an industry. It's for Chinese. I want to mention where it is and stuff. Yes. They do take logs, these logs from us. So they pack them in containers and they take them to, their home country.
Okay.
And now remember, the logs they're taking, these are good, very good, first-class logs.
First-class, yeah.
Exactly. So they do furniture out of them.
Okay.
Now, what will shock you the most is that the first-class furniture that comes from that goes to countries like, the US.
US and Europe. Yeah.
The second goes to Europe. Now the third comes to Africa.
And
so we give them the raw materials, and they give us third class. Not even second, but
use
third
the raw
class.
materials. They extract the first
from
class
us,
and we put it down, and we only get the third class.
Exactly.
That's absolute.
And of which even the third class that we are getting is at a higher price. But couldn't we really do these things on our own?
No, we could.
Exactly.
If we had. We could enforce policies. The challenge is that we do enforce the policies, reforms in various sectors, but the issue is enforcement.
No, I think it should be 2023 should be like a wake-up call.
Okay.
Yeah, let people do wake up. Let people get the eye openers and all that, and be like, yo, if at all I'm importing this at this price, I mean, it's expensive for me. So what should I do? Wake up, do something for yourself. I mean, the government itself, it has to wake up and put in this, let them put up the policies, let them set them, and let them follow them. Because we've always had a problem of enforcement, implementation, and all that. Exactly. But then let them do a follow-up of these things. Because I know most of the ministries have the M&Es, the maintenance and evaluation sectors. Let them do these things. Let them follow up and make sure that if at all we've allocated funds towards industrial development, let it be that.
Let it be that.
Yes.
Yeah, evaluation is quite very
it's
important.
key.
But you're very right on that. And of course, you mentioned some of the recommendations, so probably we shall wind up with this, strengthening water management infrastructure. Because increasing investment in water storage and irrigation infrastructure by 30%, I'm talking about in the next budget cycle, could create 100,000, actually 10,000 new jobs in the construction sector and provide reliable access to and provide reliable access to water to about 5 million people. 5 million people. I mean, water maintainers, people have access to irrigation related materials. So definitely that's the whole thing, you know, because I understand we shouldn't have agriculture which entirely relies on weather. We should be able to grow whether in season or out of season. You know, that is quite key, and it takes, this is heavy investment that we're talking about here. And of course we talk about develop climate resilient infrastructure, but of course now here comes in with implement building codes and standards for most especially flood resistant construction in prone areas. And of course this could reduce food storage damage costs, could reduce flood damage costs by 20 million US dollars annually, and also invest in early warning systems for extreme weather events to improve preparedness and minimize economic losses. Now, of course, this could save about 10 million US dollars annually in disaster response costs. So preparedness is quite very key from all that perspective. Well, this is Smart Means Business. We are definitely breaking down these matters and digging deeper, getting to see the impact of these related events and what is it shaping like for the country's economy. But of course we're going to take a break because coming up shortly is a business in entertainment and sports. But definitely when I return back within it, we shall still dwell further more. We shall touch a little bit of inflation because we have been on the disaster, the global disasters and the impact. We've seen aid diversion, scarcity of raw materials, which we've given examples, and many more. And $100 million lost as a result of some of the possible programs, aid programs that were made for Africa and is diverted into response to a disaster preparedness. So that is literally reducing the income inflow of the country later on. But of course still, you know, in it, there is a report that came out from the International Monetary Policy, and I really got, so I've gotten much, I've been talking about this over time, about the nations that are promising in the next 25 years from Africa. And there was a comparison between Rwanda and Burundi, saying that actually Rwanda and Burundi, these economies are growing faster than most economies in Europe. So we shall really break that into, but the biggest picture here, what I would think is that how are we going to use that advantage that if these be our neighbors, and they are having this value, how is Uganda benefiting being part of the East African region? And what is Uganda putting forward? Oh, we are going to be just observing them and taking the glory, and we're just looking. I mean, come 2024.
It's a new year.
But it's also worrying.
We need to look at them and we need to pick a leaf from what they're doing. If at all Rwanda can do it, then how about a country like Uganda?
But then I'm also thinking, this is also increasing tensions. Talking about the economic, can I call it, the economic partitioning of Africa by the big powers, the United States of America and China, you know. So I'm trying to think, if they know of this worth of these nations, what could this lead to, you know? Because sometimes such projections can be a curse to a country. I'm trying to tell you this. Like you've heard about the oil curse they talk about, countries with oil, because it's a resource. Look at Democratic Republic of Congo, the richest country in the world with resources. But look, civil wars, unrest. Who's responsible for this unrest? Who is responsible?
The superior powers, obviously, because they do get honestly, they do get resources from, you know, these guys.
Of course, absolutely. All right, that brings us to the end of our discussion at this particular time. Let's take a break. When we return, of course, business, entertainment, and sports. And later on, at the top of the hour, we have still more discussions relating to this. But also, we have the Woobers report that we're going to just be going through briefly. Later on, probably the other week, we shall come back with detailed analysis with experts talking about inflation, which has stayed at 2.6. I mean, we're talking about annual headline inflation. Stick around.